So hey, new bodies, I want to welcome Manuel, who's here today to do a quick video with us. He's graciously accepted doing an interview. This guy is incredibly busy. He's the COO of Fitness Town. He is a fitness celebrity online and in the real world throughout Canada, but also really well known in the US. A lot of you may already follow him, and just a really great and inspiring guy that I know I've taken inspiration from, and I was hoping to have him join in today and share a little bit about his story and what drives him with all of you. You guys know I'm very focused on motivation right now, and I think Di's a great source of that. So Di, welcome.
Wow, thank you. That's a great intro there. I'm gonna have to tape that one. That was thank you.
I just have a few questions I want to understand about you, and you know what gets you going, and you're just incredibly invested in this space that I care deeply about. We have very similar backstories about obesity when we were young. I just kind of want to pick your brain about that, because I think a lot of people struggle with it, and also struggle with the whole idea of, we're raising generations of kids who are going to face diabetes, the pandemic of obesity and diabetes coming together, and you seem very committed to changing that. So if you could just give us a little bit of what brought you to this point, and the struggles you went through, and what was that sort of trigger moment that flipped the switch for you?
When I was 9, I fell into a trap that I see a lot of kids today. Without really dating myself, I'm just going to come out and say it. I'm 37.
Yeah, you're in good company. Don't worry about that.
Yeah. So I'm 37 now. When I was a kid, obesity in children wasn't nearly as prevalent as it is now in North America. And from the age of about 9 to 14, I grew and grew and grew, but not in the way that most kids grow. I became more and more overweight. And it was the usual traps I fell into, eating very poorly, a lot of junk food, a lot of really high calorie, not very healthy products. And on top of that, I was very inactive. I played a lot of video games, watched a lot of TV, movies, and just really isolated myself. That happens with a lot of people that get into that state of obesity, or in my case, what was classified as morbid obesity, if you were to go off the body mass index.
How big did you get at the worst of it?
I was in excess of 40% body fat. I was over 220 pounds at about 5'7", and I was quite overweight. My waist was over 40 inches. And so it was a tough place to be, especially as a kid that's coming into his teen years and, just starting into high school. And at that time in my high school, from my memory, I can only remember one other kid that was a little bit bigger than me. And, so there was not like today. If you look at the stats today, and especially in some populations, some districts, the obesity epidemic is much more prevalent, and you see it all over, in every street corner. There's lots of kids. You can go to the playground, and you'll see the obese kids just standing off to the sidelines and not doing anything. And it was tough. I isolated myself. I avoided public situations, in particular, like pool parties, especially, phys ed. No way, man. I made up excuse after excuse. I leveraged my asthma as a reason why I couldn't participate. Avoided the change room altogether. Man, if I had to take my shirt off in public, no way. And it was very tough. It was tough. And as I neared the age of 15, I often reference it when I speak about this. I talk about my Anthony Robbins moment. And I am a big fan of Anthony Robbins. I'm a big believer in motivation, self-motivation, but also just the way we talk to ourselves, what goes on between the ears. And I had a very poor me attitude. And that transformed. I talk about it on my blog and some of the video interviews I've done, where I hit a pinnacle point where it was like, I'm not happy. I'm at rock bottom. There's two options here. Suicide was one. But the other was pick myself up, do something about it, make a change. And fortunately, I picked that. And I haven't looked back since. I really dedicated myself to health, wellness, living a more active lifestyle, eating better. And I became just consumed by information. Now, this is all pre-Google. Again, I told you I'm 37. This is a long time ago. I did it the old school way. I went to the library. I sourced out mentors and people that understood fitness, were getting results, asked them questions. And over a 12 to 14 month period, I literally transformed. And fortunately, getting active also kickstarted puberty for me, which also helped. That boost in testosterone definitely helped assist with changing that fat, burning it off in essence, and building lean muscle mass. And also, I grew from that 5'8" to 6'1", 5'7" to 6'1", so that also helped me sort of change dimensionally. But that's sort of the snapshot back then. We fast forward now just over 20 years. I've been in the fitness industry for 16 of those years. And when I say in the industry, I mean actually collecting an income from the industry and making a living from that. And I love it. I really, without sounding crude, but I get off on helping people get results and really empowering them with knowledge and motivation and education to leverage their time better, to get results quicker, and ultimately create a lifestyle that is easy to maintain.
That's great. And that sort of touches on the other piece that I wanted to get into. And you were the first one that used JFDI that I saw. And I'm sure other people have used it too, but it sort of gets at the Nike idea, just do it. What is it that keeps you going through it? Because, there's up days, there's down days, there's days you're feeling sick, there's days you're just super busy, but you don't seem to break from it. You seem to keep motivating. Like you said, 20 years since you were that 15-year-old when the light switch went off, or went on rather. So what is it that you lean on to keep you going through the ups, through the downs, through the busy periods, the sickness, whatever it might be?
Well, and I haven't talked about this a lot on my blog, but through Facebook and Twitter, I've made reference to it. But a few years ago, actually less than 2 years ago, I was diagnosed with autoimmune neutropenia. So I was diagnosed with this a couple of years ago, and I've got a blog post I've been dabbling with, and I will come out with this a bit later because I think it will help relate to a lot of people that have those medical conditions that we could very easily turn into an excuse or a reason why we can't do certain things. For me, it's just become another reason why I have to stay as fit as I am, because my fitness and my health literally masked a lot of the symptoms that I was experiencing for years. And so as I was talking about, autoimmune neutropenia is basically my body attacks my neutrophils. My neutrophils are, if you cut yourself, Brian, you would have a rush of good, healthy cells that would go there, white blood cells, neutrophils, and they literally neutralize infection and bacteria and all that kind of stuff. So if I get a cut or I get what happened to me once, I did Tough Mudder. I got, my thighs are a little bit bigger and they tend to rub when I run. And I had, because I'm not conditioned for running. It's the ongoing joke. That's why I'm called Moose. We'll talk about that later. But I'm Moose for a reason. I'm not a big runner. And I often joke that I do the majority of my running one day a year, and that's when I do the Tough Mudder. And so I got rash in between my legs, and then that night, obviously I got into the hot tub, got an infection, and that's what got me into that mode because my body literally started shutting down. I had a systemic infection, which was spreading, and got rushed to the hospital and doped up on a bunch of drugs. They didn't know what was going on, and they were able to figure out what more or less, the medical, the whole medical world. They're very apt to tell you what it's not, but when it comes to telling you what it is, there's always like, I think it's this, it's behaving like this, but they always want to rule out things. I find that they're very cautious about giving actual diagnoses. So without being 100% sure, but they feel that I'm responding as if it's autoimmune neutropenia. And so it's under control now. I have to take some medication, similar stuff that they give to patients that are undergoing chemotherapy. It's a bit of a suppressant, so it slows down my immune system so my neutrophils aren't killed off as quickly. Or in essence, my bone marrow is producing more than my body can kill off. Puts me into sort of hyperdrive mode. And it gets me to about half of what most people walk around with normal counts of neutrophils. So, this has been an ongoing thing for me and dealing with that, obviously. But I don't use it as a reason why I can't exercise. Like yourself, I'm a father. I deal with a lot of parents and a lot of people that are very time consumed. And, the whole idea of time management, I'm not a big believer in it. I don't feel we can manage that intangible. It's something that's always going to be moving forward. If you try to grasp onto it, it's just going to get away from you, But I do believe that we can manage our commitments, and we can make commitments to ourselves and to our families and to our friends and to our careers. And we can manage time from a perspective of blocking out certain segments, certain commitments. And I just make sure that when I commit to myself my daily fitness habits, that I maintain those commitments. because I know long term it's going to benefit my family, it's going to benefit me, and it makes me feel good. I've gotten to a point now where excuses are really just bad habits in disguise, right? And you'll often hear that reference by different leaders out there in the industry that talk about motivation and habits. And I was able to figure out where my bad habits lie and literally just break those by avoiding them. Taking myself out of the situations where I could rely on those. And my kids now are a massive motivator for me. I exercise because of them. I don't miss out on exercise because of them. And that's where I find that a lot of people will use their children. Oh, I got to drive Timmy to soccer practice. I got to take Kim to swimming. I'm driving them around everywhere. I don't have time to exercise. And I'm like, well, you just told me that it's your kid's fault that you're getting out of shape. That's wrong, and I'm very bold when I say that to people, and some people take it the wrong way, and I'm trying to help them, but I want them to understand what they just told me. That's what I heard. I heard you just use your kids as an excuse to why your fitness and your health is falling to the wayside. Your kids should be the reason you want to stay healthy and fit. They should be the motivator for you, because I know for myself, when I talk to people about long-term results versus short-term results, I mean, Brian, how do you want to retire 30 years from now? 30 years from now, what do you want to be doing? Well, I want to be walking around the monuments of the world with my wife and enjoying and taking in the scenery. I don't want to see it from the window of a bus. I don't want to be walking on a crutch. I don't want to be using a cane. I want to be self-reliant. And the only way I can ensure that my opportunity for that, reality to occur is I've got to maintain a certain habit now that's going to allow my body to age well, to be functionally fit. And you'll often hear me reference that in a lot of my interviews and a lot of my blog posts. It's got that same tonality to it. I'm all about people being functional, getting up and down out of a chair, man. Like, you lose that ability to do that on your own, you're one step away from an assisted living home, like literally.
I've heard you talk about that a lot in reference to CrossFit.
Yeah,
that it's about the functional side of it. And that's something I wanted to touch on is I have a triathlete friend who's into CrossFit, and half the time sort of stooped over and in pain because of some injury he's endured from CrossFit. And you hear a lot about, the people who are just like militant fanatics, absolutely love it, it's the greatest thing that ever happened. And the people who are like that, but in complete pain all the time because they're injured. And it does seem like injury rates are high. And I was just wondering, given that you've been a practitioner for a while, you're level 1 coach in CrossFit, what do you see with the injury rates? Why do you think they are what they are, and what might be missing from CrossFit or the way some people are practicing it?
I get asked a lot, and obviously because I have a lot of friends in the fitness industry that are, I hate to say anti-CrossFit, because I'm not anti anything. Like, I listen, man. One of my company's mottos is always keep moving. We're all about just reinforcing people that pattern, that habit, that habitual daily routine of just keeping your body moving. So anything that encourages that, I'm all for, as long as it's not hurting anybody, it's not hurting yourself. But I do have some friends that are fairly anti-CrossFit, more so from the respects that some of the coaches out there, they may not have a lot of experience to draw upon. They may have done a 2-day workshop or 2-day course and now have a level 1 certification, and that's their intro. Other than that, they'd done 6 months of training in CrossFit at a CrossFit box, and they were like, I want to do this, and that's great. But I think we just have to recognize that there's people in every line of work that have more experience than others, and it's recognizing that sometimes people that come to us for advice and training, and in particular if you're a personal trainer, because I see it within that arena as well. There's a huge degree of separation of degrees of knowledge and how to work with certain types of clients. And so, like anything, you get into doing a sport. If you're picking up hockey for the first time, you don't know how to skate. Well, you better watch it, because it's pretty easy to hurt yourself on a pair of skates if you've never done it before. And meanwhile, you want to go and buy all the hockey gear and start playing rep hockey. Well, there's steps that have to be done before you can progress to that. And I find it's the same with CrossFit. Some boxes out there are fantastic with their foundational courses. They really hone in on those that have been there for less than 6 months to ensure that they have the foundational movements dialed in before they start moving into more complex movements. But yeah, obviously there's going to be some that have less experience. It might be a guy that's been doing CrossFit for 6 months, got a level 1 and opened up a box, and sure, he's excited, he's fired up. And, that energy is contagious. You know what it's like. Yeah, I remember when I first started CrossFit, I was all over it. I thought I was fit until I did my baseline fitness test, and then I was literally dry heaving on the fence outside, and I was like, "Wow, that was hard." And that was only my testing. Man, what will this be like when I come back? And but I'm the type of personality that I thrive off that, and I like to be pushed. So for me, it was a really good fit. Have I injured myself in CrossFit? Absolutely. But it matches me and my personality based on how I push myself.
Of course,
So
people get injured in other things too.
yeah, of course I have. I do a lot of hiking in the summer. I've rolled my ankle hiking. I've had lots of injuries over the years, and I think it comes with the territory that we're venturing into. I don't think it should be a deterrent for people to avoid it, but I think you do have to listen to your body. You have to really be in tune, and you have to recognize if a coach is asking you to do something that you're not comfortable doing. I mean, the overhead squat is a very complex movement, and I find most people's mobility is very lacking before they can even entertain the idea of holding a dowel over the head. Can they get deep enough in the squat and maintain proper movement pattern, right? Like, if they can't do a proper squat, why would I want them to now try to put a weight over their head and do that again? You're just reinforcing bad movements, and eventually people will get hurt, especially when you start introducing loads and everything else. So, like I said, CrossFit doesn't matter. Zumba, I've heard of people, literally popping kneecaps out, really just torquing their knee in a bad way. And there's easy ways to get hurt in anything. I hurt myself in yoga once. I pulled a muscle in my back overstretching. So hey, you just got to be smart. Got to listen to your body.
Yeah, I mean, the advice, it sounds like it's the same as any sport. And some people might think CrossFit is immune because it's exciting and new to a lot of people. But you start with the basics. You find instructor who's not sort of insane about it and understands what building that fundamental core of everything is. And
That's right. Absolutely, absolutely, and it's finding that good fit and finding the community. I love CrossFit for the community aspect, especially, and just follow it on social media. It's incredible because it is literally a sport that's blown up and grown through social media. Over the last 10 years, it started as a blog, on a daily workout, a WOD, posted every day. And from there, it's just grown to a global brand and a sport now. And it's pretty remarkable. But I tell people go for the health and the fitness benefits initially, but it's the community that keeps them coming back.
It does seem very different from other sports in that regard. There is no just you. It's 100% about the group that you're in the box.
Yes. I mean, it's interesting. Like, you go to the CrossFit Games. I've been there a number of times now, and I often jest about it. But I'm like, I look around at the audience that's there, watching and cheering on the athletes. They're all participants in the sport. Where I go to hockey games here in Vancouver, and there's a lot of people there that might have played hockey back in the day, but they're people that really are there to cheer on the sport. They love the sport, but they're not participants in the sport. So I think there's a big separation there, and I think it's common in a lot of sports out there, professional sports especially, where CrossFit's different because it's so community focused and it's grown through community. You go to the games, it's crazy just to see how many fit people there are there, how many people that really treat their health and their fitness and the whole concept of functional fitness to a whole nother level. And it's a fun community to be around because it gets you excited. It gets you, as they say, drinking the Kool-Aid,
Another thing that you're very big on that's sort of similarly, popular in the social side is also paleo. I myself follow a not paleo diet, but very close to it, very similar kind of diet. And I'm just curious, share with us, how do you make that livable? Paleo is another one of those things where people sort of immediately push back. It's a fad, or I can't give up whatever it is that isn't within that. So just how do you make it livable every day?
That's a great question, Brian. I do get that asked a lot about paleo. I think paleo is very challenging for a lot of people because it's such an extreme. To go from one to, from just how the general populace eats now, to go to that extreme, it's a massive step. It's a big commitment, and you literally do have to plan it. And I'm not 100% paleo. I'll be honest with you. I have a little bit of dairy in the form of organic yogurt, and it partly due to my immune disorder. There's certain things that I have to get from organic yogurt, and I do grass-fed butter as well. I do my bulletproof coffee still. It'd be tough for me to give up, but I do. I enjoy that. I really, the thing I try to hammer home is no gluten, and I try to avoid just a lot of artificial products, a lot of processed products. And so we eat a lot of whole foods in my house. Our goal this year is to go gluten free for the whole year. And more so because like a big driving factor for me, a big why I'm my family, we're making that commitment to each other, is my eldest daughter. She's also got a medical condition. She was diagnosed with about 18 months ago. It's funny. We both were going through our medical issues around the same time, but she was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis and juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. And you're familiar with a lot of the inflammatory properties of certain food stuffs out there. And so we've done a lot of research. Gluten is huge for her. Sugar is massive. Any artificial sweeteners, again, she gets similar sort of reactions. Some are different than others, but aspartame in particular is just, I mean, same for myself. I have a very adverse effect to aspartame. But so for us, it's really, well, how are we going to do this? And it's putting a plan in place, which we have, and now it's just executing that plan. But it requires thought. You got to think it out ahead of time, and I think it's common for a lot of us. But we are a fast food nation, and we are all about instant gratification, and it's easy to veer off the road when we're hungry and go through a drive-through. It's very easy. It's convenient. It's fast. And it's not overly expensive. It's fairly inexpensive when you look at the whole scheme of things. But when you start looking at the makeup of the foods that are being provided through these fast food chains, you've got to start questioning, are all calories the same? And definitely they're not. I love that movie Food Matters. I mean, there's a lot of good movies out there, but I really enjoyed Food Matters, and I think that was a great flick. And I watched that with my daughters, and they're being 8 and 10. They were like, "Wow, this is crazy!" Wow, I mean, like it just gave them a different perspective, and I'm all about that. I try not to harp on people for the way they eat. But I do recognize that they come back to me. And I remember once asking Rob Wolf some questions as it related to my daughter. And, he started firing back to me a bunch of questions. And it was really cool because he was just talking about paleo and all the studies behind it and all the benefits. And it really just hammered home on the idea of going gluten-free. That was really the biggest piece that I took away from it, based on all the documentation and the research and all the backup he had to show what gluten does to the body. Fortunately, some people are less adverse to the effects than others. I do have a slight intolerance. I know my daughter, Chardonnay, with her arthritis, has a very adverse effect when she has gluten products. But when I talked to him, he started asking me certain questions. He was like, well, what about this? Did she do this? Did she do this? Did she do this? It became, well, until you get rid of those issues, we can't really go to the next level. But it was a very medical approach, a scientific approach to understanding how our body responds to food. And I should have known that, and it made a lot of sense. And I was like, okay, well, Rob, I got to try that out before I come back to you and ask you any more questions. We can't keep talking about this, because at that point it just becomes a hypothesis. It's just an idea until we prove it. And so when I get clients that come to me, and sorry, this is a long sort of roundabout way of talking about paleo, but when they come to me and they start talking about, oh, I'm not losing weight, or I'm this, that, and the other, I start asking questions like, well, how many calories are you consuming in a day? How often are you eating? Oh, you only eat one meal a day? Well, how much water do you drink? How much sleep do you get? There's all these questions that you can start to ask people. And they're like, oh, well, geez, this seems like a lot of work. And I'm like, well, do you want to feel better? Do you want to sleep better? Do you want to look better? Do you want to just live a healthier lifestyle? Because if you do, these are the questions we need to answer. We're talking about your life here. This is serious. This is long term. Let's figure out something that works for you, both from time, but also long term sustainability. I try to follow paleo and zone portioning. I find that my body responds really well. But again, it's been a trial and error. Like I've had to try a bunch of different things to figure out what my body responds best to. And I think you got to take that approach sometimes when you're introducing new foods, or also new ways of eating if we're accustomed to eating one way, for our whole life. It's challenging. Just real quick, because you are a father and you're showing, not telling your son. Do you know that is the piece I'd like to hammer home? Like when it comes to kids and family, people ask me, well, how do you feed your kids? I'm like, what do you mean, how do I feed my kids? They eat what I eat. Well, what happens if they don't like it? Well, I'm going to get really hungry. Like they're kids. They're going to do what they're going to follow suit. Whatever the parents are doing, they will end up doing. So lead by example. Show them, don't tell them. That leads back to one of the first questions you asked me. Why do I stay so motivated and continue to do what I do? And it seems like I got this concept of time figured out. Well, I don't, but I recognize that I put it out there. I live my life the way I do in order to show people it can be done. And that's rather than, I don't want to be that trainer that always tells people, hey, do this, do this, do this. I'm like, hey, listen, this worked for me. Let's talk about you for a bit. Let's figure out something that works for you, but I'll show you how you can start to implement these daily habits, you know? And I'd rather be that guy that shows them and travels along that path with them to making these lifestyle changes than just being the person that says, hey, read a book, do this, do that, come back and talk to me in 6 weeks. Like I think it's really tough because it's the accountability piece, it's the relationship piece. People want that relationship there. They want someone to relate to, to feel their concerns, to feel their pain, and I think both you and I, coming from those states of obesity, it allows us to empathize with people that are in that situation where they are in a state of unhealth. And being able to relate to their situation and be able to talk to them on the same level and say, listen, I know what you're going through. I completely understand. But I know you want to make a change. You've told me that. So let's figure out really why is it that you want to make this change? What is the driving factor and what is going to allow you to maintain this change long term? And once you get that figured out, man, everything else just comes easy.
Through your time in the hospital when you did get sick, you were still responding to everyone who messaged you. You're incredibly busy, but you never don't get back to people. And I think that's so important, is the care you put back into it. Some people get into fitness and health because of narcissism and they want to look good. Some do it because they care. And that, I just want to thank you for that, because it really does show through your whole approach. Out of respect for your time, just anything that you want to hit on that we haven't touched on. I know you have a lot going on, a lot of ventures in the works and things that you're doing now. So anything you'd like to touch on before we go?
Well, I think the big piece, I'm a big believer in empowering people with knowledge. If you can help someone learn to exercise, understand personal intensity, as it relates to exercise, I've got some new ventures coming down the pipe that really are going to hammer home on that. And it's empowering people with exercise as well as, daily habits and accountability, and really creating an online community of like-minded individuals to encourage one another and to feed off one another. And I can't really get into a lot of details on it right now. We're coming up to the pre-launch mode, but I'll definitely provide you with info, so we can update maybe a link in the video later. But it's coming down the pipe. But people can connect with me on my blog, or if you're local in Vancouver, come by one of my stores in Fitness Town. I'm happy to connect with people. And Twitter is great at that Manuel. Pretty much all my social channels. It's the only advantage to having a really unique name is I was able to get my name on pretty much every social channel out there. So I'm really easy. When you type in my name in Google, the first 3 or 4 pages are literally just me. So I'm really easy to get in a hold of. And I'm happy to help people any way I can. And, there's a couple of online challenges I got going. It's just to give people daily workouts with or without equipment. It's, you've done one now with the nutrition challenge, and I love that. I think it's fantastic. And, for me, I love nutrition as well, but I don't know as much as you. You are so knowledgeable as it comes to nutrition, how to feed your body. I'd rather direct people to you for the nutrition.
Well, you're cutting the gluten. Join in. Say it.
Yeah. No, I think so. We're planning our meals right now for the next little while. We've aligned with a couple local organics.
Draw lines in the sand.
Yeah, I know. Go public with it. I'm the guy that talks about it all the time too. And I've been watching all the communications on the Facebook group, and I'm like, oh, I got to put it out there. And so it's coming down. We actually have a website that we'll launch with that to show people our process of what we're going through, meal plans. Like, we're going to be very transparent with it. Well, I think it's a piece that people need, to experience.
So you can do it. And you can do it with a family.
Exactly. Well, I think that's the missing piece. I found a lot of people talk about gluten-free, talk about meal plans and all this, but I haven't found a lot out there that's really family focused. How do you do it with a busy family? And so we're going to try to take that on and document basically a year's worth of us going gluten-free. So stay tuned for that. And that's glutenfreefamilychallenge.com. That will be the website when it launches. But hey, it's been great talking to you, Brian. Thank you.
Sam, it's something I've looked forward to for a really long time. So thank you so much for doing this and doing what you do and inspiring people. It's huge. It's huge.
Hey, it goes both ways, man. Like, honestly, I love your info. Love all that you're doing as well. And hey, man, we can both feed off each other and help a lot of people. So I say, let's just keep that going.
Oh, thank you so much, Di, for joining us today. This is Di Manuel, COO of Fitness Town, health and fitness expert. blogger, just fitness, health, celebrity, and huge motivation and inspiration, as I'm sure you guys have seen from today. Di, again, thank you so much for joining us. You guys check him out, manuel.com. You can read his blog, see all the great content that he's posting, and follow all his activities. You can join his 31-day challenge on Facebook. You can follow him on Twitter at @DiManuel, and find him on Facebook as well, facebook.com/DiManuel. And as he said, just Google his name, you'll find him. Thanks again, Di, and remember everyone, it's stuff like this great content, this inspirational stuff, this motivational stuff that you can seek out, you can also find from within you. That's how you enlighten your body.